welcome back to another Facebook Live. I'm Angela Dahlgren, and I have Fred Hazelton joining me in just a bit. If you were just joining us, we had some technical difficulties, but we should be okay now. Okay, let's start over. If you are joining us, please tell us where you are joining us from. Also, tell us what you did over the holidays. So what we're doing today is we are going to answer some questions that you asked earlier when we promoted this Facebook Live. And we are also going to talk about the crowd calendar a little bit. We had some changes there, so we're going to address those and kind of let you know what's going on. I'm adding Fred right now. It's working!
Yes!
We did it!
I made it.
Oh my gosh, look at your collection of books in the background.
Yeah.
Your background is way nicer than mine is. Look at mine. It's like indoors. It's not cool at all.
Hey.
Okay, everyone say hi to Fred. He's one of our statisticians.
Hello, everybody.
Here at TouringPlans. Everyone say hi. Our other one is Steve Bloom, and he is probably going to be in the comments adding to anything that we have to say or to talk about. So, yes, how are you doing, Fred?
I'm doing well. How are you, Angela?
I'm doing well. Just had coffee, so I have lots of
Good
to
for
talk
you.
about, obviously, lots of energy.
Good.
Everyone's saying hi. Dawn said that she was at Disney World in early December, and she did the Christmas party
Nice.
and early morning magic at Toy Story Land. I think Steve did that and had a great time. He did all the rides several times.
It's a great way to go. Yeah, if you can get up early and get there, it's a good way to have the parks to yourselves.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm gonna turn up my volume so I can hear you better. Oh no, I just took a picture of you.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, well, yeah. I hope you were smiling.
Probably not.
We got some other people saying hi to you, Fred. We have Chris from Wisconsin.
Hey,
That's
Chris.
pretty close to me. Were you in Wisconsin?
No, Steve was in Wisconsin just last week. Yeah, last weekend.
Okay, I knew one of you
Yeah.
were, and I didn't remember which one. All right, so I see some questions are coming in. I have some questions for you first,
Great.
Fred, before we begin. As far as the crowd calendar, so we've had a lot of changes. I knew that you and Steve were kind of almost not really redoing the crowd calendar, but really taking a look at it. Do you want to talk about kind of what you were doing this past month in December with it?
Yes. Well, we've been doing updates on a monthly basis for most of 2018. But then we took a break in December because we saw some things that we didn't like in the update that was about to go out. So we took a step back and then we revisited a couple of things. We kind of did an audit on our process to see if we could figure out what was going on. And then we posted an update just a couple of days ago. And unfortunately with this update, as it does happen sometimes, thankfully it's rare, but in this particular update, there were a lot of significant increases to the crowd levels for dates from now and through the rest of 2019. So basically what happens is that there's like 4 different ways that you can, 4 different sources of error that can cause something in the calendar to change unexpectedly. You can have real changes with crowd trends in the parks. So more people are going, attractions are busier. You can have changes to the conditions that we use to predict what the crowd levels are going to be. So if Disney does something different with their park hour structure, or somebody mentioned the early morning magic, new events, things like that things that are new, that's hard for us to predict because we haven't had a chance to gather the data on them yet.
Like a lot of that Disney after hours that have been
all
added?
That stuff is, kind of an unknown for us. It's going to take a while for our models and our process to react to that. That's another source. And then you've got, obviously, technical problems with any kind of software or methodology that you're using for your predictions. And then you've got human error. Now, usually, these things kind of counteract each other. They're either non-existent or they're there in small amounts, and they counteract each other. Every once in a while, you get kind of an unfortunate perfect storm like we had last week, which is all of these things seem to happen in the same update, and it meant everything was going in the same direction, which in this case, for some dates, was up. Not everything went up. There were some dates that actually went down. Specifically in the summer and the fall, some things went down. But in the winter, a lot of things went up. We saw some jumps of 2 or 3 or even more points for some dates in January and February.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I know that a lot of people are kind of seeing those like almost Christmas-like crowds in February. Some people are seeing like, maybe it was at 2 and now it's at 8
Yeah.
at Animal Kingdom. What are some reasons for that? I've heard that maybe Disney is cutting back their operations staff, the ones who kind of work the rides. Is that a factor?
It can be, yeah. That's something that we saw last year. Now, we don't have any kind of insider information that tells us that that's going to happen. However, that doesn't mean the risk is zero. In fact, we think the risk is something greater than zero. Who knows what it is? But that can have a huge impact on the wait times. And I mentioned wait times, and I talk a lot about wait times. Maybe it's good point to kind of reset that, because it's important to remember that our crowd calendar is based purely on wait times. So
not people in the
no,
park.
not people in the park. Although the vast majority of the time, the two things are the same, or they're related to each other. Higher wait times means more people in the park. It isn't always the case, and there are a significant number of examples where that isn't the case.
Like the marathon.
Marathon's a good example. The resorts are packed. Wide World of Sports is super busy. Traffic might be really bad, but if you go to Space Mountain on on a regular Tuesday morning after a marathon, or even during the marathon, it might not be that busy. That's a good example. So that can happen. In relation to saying that these are going to be Christmas-like crowds in February, I think it's also important to note that there's only one Christmas break. Christmas is kind of a whole nother level. Now we call it a 10 on our scale because it's obviously maxed out, but there's a wide range of wait times that you can see throughout the year that are classified as a 10 on our scale, and it goes from dates around Easter, Thanksgiving, sometimes in February during President's Week. Those are going to be a lower wait times when it's a 10-day than you might see for Christmas, for example. Christmas is it almost should be an 11. It's so much more busier than everything else. It's kind of its own thing.
But we just don't go any higher on the scale than a 10,
that's
which
right.
is why you put it as a 10.
So when you see a 10 in February, I don't want people to think that it's going to be, shoulder to shoulder, capacity crowds at the parks. It probably won't be that. In fact, I can pretty much say it won't be that. But the wait times are going to be very, very high. And that's why we want to label it as a 10, because it kind of hits that, that kind of upper echelon of wait times that we see throughout the year. We try to distribute the 1 to 10 levels as equally as we can. Now, they're not equal, but we try to spread them out as much as we can because we want people to be able to, pick between dates, obviously. So,
right.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go back a little bit as far as what our crowd calendar numbers, what our crowd calendar is and what the numbers mean.
Right.
So the crowd calendar, we kind of refer to the calendar as not so much people in the park, but more wait times.
That's right.
That's kind of important to distinguish, because people are thinking, oh my gosh, a 10, it's going to be packed shoulder to shoulder, which could be the case, but we're referring to wait times. What do the numbers mean, that 1 to 10?
Yeah, so basically what we do is that we forecast the wait time every 5 minutes, every day for the entire year. And then we run a process where we convert all those wait times and take the average on a given day for just the key, what we call the core attractions or the key attractions. You can think of that as just kind of the most popular headline attractions. And then we look at the core hours of the day. So that's 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. So we throw all of those wait times in there and we get an average, and then we compare those averages throughout the year and we assign a 1 to 10 value. So we really don't, there's nothing in there that takes into account attendance, for example. In fact, we don't even have attendance information. We don't get attendance numbers from Disney, nothing like that. We are coming at this from a wait time approach, and that's what the numbers mean. It's related to the wait times you're going to see.
Okay. So I was listening to you that I forgot my next question. Okay. So with the wait time, how long has TouringPlans been tracking this information? Because we're not just pulling this out of thin air.
Gosh, no. We have, I think we're up to about 13 million wait times that we've collected now. They go back all the way to 2000 we started in 2002. Our current database goes back to 2006. Now, most of the analysis that we do on wait times is from about 2011 on. We find that anything older than that is, not really relevant anymore. So from 2011 till now, we have a huge data set of wait times that we've collected. Thanks to all our great users of lines out there, we've received, millions and millions of wait times, which is how we can do it.
So the liners really take a big part in helping us track everything.
Huge part. Yeah, huge part.
Well, thanks, guys.
Yes.
So what does a 10 mean? Does it mean that people are waiting like an average of 100 minutes for like a headliner attraction? I know we talked about this on the podcast, so I'm kind of going from what I remember.
Yeah.
Like, how long of a wait does that mean for a top attraction?
Well, it depends on the attraction. So with each attraction, we have its own 10-level scale where we compare the wait times there to what that attraction would see every other day of the year. So something like, let me think, a Spaceship Earth, a 10 at Spaceship Earth, I don't have the figures with me here, but say that's 120 minutes. Whereas a 10 for Flight of Passage is going to be, 280 or even more, something over 200 probably. So each attraction has its 1 to 10 scale. And then, so then we figure out the 1 to 10 at the attraction level, and then we combine all those to get a 1 to 10 for the park level.
Okay, so you just take that average, and each attraction is different on their 1 to 10 scale.
That's right. Yeah, you can think of it. It's almost like I like to think of it as kind of like a percentile. So it's kind of like that 10 or like kind of the 10% of all the busiest days. It's not exactly 10%, but it's that biggest chunk. The 9s are the next biggest chunk for each attraction for every day, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. What would you tell people who got this huge got this huge junk? They probably want to drink after seeing the change in numbers. Yes. What would you tell people who have a trip in the next couple weeks, see this huge jump in numbers? Yeah. What would you tell them who, they're kind of upset about that? What would you say?
Well, I've had a chance, luckily, to reach out to many of them. We've received a lot of emails from people. We had a blog post about the update that came out the same day.
I will link that as you talk. Yeah. I'll link that blog post.
So we got a lot of responses from that, and thankfully, like I said, it doesn't happen very often, but it has happened before where we've had these kinds of big jumps on an update, and it kind of goes in 2 waves. So we receive all of the frustration from people, which is completely understandable. When we see these updates come across our desk, it makes us feel sick because we know that when we publish this, people are going to start to panic a little bit. But then we get the second wave of responses once we try to explain, why the updates were the way they were. And we get this second wave of people who go in and they actually start to alter their touring plans or re-optimize their touring plans based on the new forecasts. And a lot of people are surprised to see that their touring plans don't change as much as they thought they were going to change. And there's a really interesting reason for that, because the touring plans are kind of the secret. Once you have the secret, it almost doesn't really matter what the crowd level is. Because if you're using an optimized touring plan, then the difference between, say, a 5-day and an 8-day is going to be really small, because you're already optimizing your touring. You have, you're beating the crowds, you're going against the flow. So you're not going to see a huge change in the amount of time you wait in line when you use that touring plan on an 8-day as opposed to a 5-day. So we try to stress that to people that, yes, it looks really bad when you see a day go from a 5 to an 8 or a 4 to a 9 even. And that is a huge jump. But I don't think the magnitude of that jump really represents a huge difference in the way that it's going to feel when you're using your touring plan in the park. So I try to stress to people, stick to the plan, definitely re-optimize it, because there are going to be some new wait time forecasts in there. Re-optimize it. If you have to adjust it, go ahead and make your adjustments.
Yeah.
But that, it's important to know that you've already got the biggest secret to beating the crowds, and that is using your touring plan. So that's the most important thing.
I think, no, that's really important. And from someone who I don't have anything to do with the crowd calendar, I am pretty much a consumer of touring plans as far as I'm concerned with how much I have to do with it.
Right.
I've used it for every single trip as long as I've worked for touring plans, and I have found it really accurate. That's not me, trying to build this back up. It's just true. And I think that, not only, has this just happened, but I think we do have a history of being accurate, and I understand why people are upset, but I think it's important, like you said, to put out honest, updated numbers to prepare people rather than to just continue to have, inaccurate
Oh,
numbers.
for sure, and that's always been our philosophy. Like I said, when we see these updates, we think, oh no, this is going to be, this is going to be rough on our customers.
Mm-hmm.
But we always talk ourselves into it to say, our philosophy is that we want to publish the most up to date, accurate estimates that we can, even if it means that things have to go up. We would rather do that.
Yeah.
We'd rather people know in advance that it might be a little busier than expected going in. We would rather people have that information than to just keep things the same for the sake of consistency's sake.
Well, and let's talk about the changes, on Disney's end. They have added more early morning after hours events. People are going during the off seasons, which has really changed.
Oh yeah.
Parents aren't bringing their kids during the summers as much. Now they're taking them out of school, which I think we've talked about before.
Yeah, summer the last couple of years has been way down, and I think we can see that Disney, is aware of that, obviously, because they announced the free dining in the summer, and I think that's exactly why people are not going. Families, especially, I think, are not going in the summer nearly to the same numbers that they were in years past. So, that's definitely changed. There's a lot of, like you mentioned, the different parties, the different events. That's altering the schedules in a way that's not yet clear. One thing that we do when we're trying to forecast, when we're doing our models for forecasting the wait times, is we put a lot of weight into what we have seen recently. We find that if we look at that sort of 3 to 5 month range, and if we see some kind of underlying trend there's a high likelihood that trend's going to continue. And we've seen some higher than expected wait times in the fall, especially through Thanksgiving, even through December. And so I think that's one of the reasons that these models are now saying that, it's going to be a busier winter than we might have normally expected.
And you addressed all of that in that blog post that I posted. You went month by month and kind of addressed every month and what it might look like. Just to finish it up before we go over to people's questions, because I know you have asked a lot, everyone, and we haven't addressed those yet. Will these numbers be updated again, or is this it for a while?
Okay, so like I mentioned before, we do these updates on a monthly basis. And so every month, it's actually, internally, we're updating this constantly. Right now, there are people in the parks, they're submitting wait times. Technically speaking, that triggers an update, so we're constantly updating and churning out new forecasts based on the information that comes in. So, but we don't update the calendar on a constant basis. I think that would be too much instability for people to handle.
Yeah.
So what we've done, like I mentioned, starting in 2018, was doing these monthly updates. So we will do another monthly update at the end of this month, going into the beginning of February. And who knows what that update is going to see. It's hard to imagine that it would show more increases, but it certainly is possible. We try to stress that the crowd calendar is always subject to change. Luckily, most times it stays pretty much the same, but there are cases like we saw this week where there are drastic changes. So yeah, we'll continue to do our monthly updates. I think in response to this latest dramatic update, we're also going to do like a middle of the month kind of semi-update. We're not actually going to update the calendar per se, but we're going to have just a discussion about, what's happened in the recent past and what we think is going to happen on the next update, just to try to give people a bit more heads up. That's one thing I think we deserve a little bit of criticism for, is that we kind of dump this on people without any kind of warning. I think we're going to try to give people a little more heads up when these things are going to change, especially if they're dramatic changes, just so they can kind of mentally prepare for what's coming. So people should look for that sometime in the middle of next week. We'll do like a middle of January review and update.
And Fred, a lot of people have joined us just now.
Good.
Can you address once more why they may have seen jumps around, President's Day and January, February, from that maybe 3 in the crowd calendar to a 9? Can you address that once more?
Yeah. Okay. So there are a bunch of factors that go into our predictions for crowd levels. There are different sources of error for those predictions. There are if something changes in terms of the actual trend of people in the parks and the wait times at the parks, that can obviously increase the forecasts. There are situations where the park conditions that we use to predict the wait times change. We talked about that, the fact that Disney's added so many new events and different morning promotions and these other hard ticketed things. That is a little bit difficult for us to model because it's so new. That can impact the wait time forecasts and the crowd levels. You've got technical problems with any kind of modeling that you do, and you've got human error. And what happened this time is a little bit of all four. There was definitely part of us where, we had some technical issues with the software that we used to predict wait times, and that was pushing wait times lower than they probably should have been. That's something that we noticed in our December update, which we put on hold. We wanted to get to the bottom of that. That was definitely part of it. And so all of these things together kind of created this perfect storm where all of these errors were pointing in the upward direction. And so we have this, this kind of reset, this jump on this one update. So yeah, so that's the best explanation I can give for why we're seeing these big jumps. There's no new events as far as we can tell. It's not like there's an extra 50,000 people coming to the parks that were coming before. It's just kind of a reset to our forecasts. Oh, the other thing I should mention too is that I think I mentioned this before, but wait times are just up in general. If you look at November and December, specifically, I'm thinking about Thanksgiving. We saw wait times. Our predictions actually under-predicted over Thanksgiving, which is quite rare. Normally, those busy holidays we get them pretty bang on, but it was actually the wait times were higher than we normally would have expected for that time of year. So when that happens, our models react pretty strongly to that, and they give us an indication that, the busy times in the recent past were busier. So the busy times in the near future might also be busier as well. So that's one of the contributing factors that's pushing everything in the upward direction.
Yeah. So more people are just coming to the parks. And I think you mentioned just, Disney's reducing their operations staff a little bit, but we don't know how long they're going to continue to do that. That's hard to predict.
That's a big mystery. We don't actually know that they're doing that yet. That happened last year.
It did.
It did happen. Yeah, and it was a huge impact.
That increases wait times?
Oh, huge increase to wait times. And the weird thing with that is that it's a huge increase to wait times with not one more person in the park. Because if you reduce your capacity by half, say, that doubles the wait time. It's a huge impact to the wait time. So if that happens again, and I think I think the risk of that is something greater than zero. I don't think that it's fair to say that that's definitely not going to happen. And that's something that our models have to take into account as well. If there's a risk of something like that happening, we have to, it's going to try to take that into account. And I think that's one contributor as well.
Also, something Fred said is that a 10 in February is going to look different than a 10 around Christmas. And the reason we have it as a 10 in February is because our model just doesn't go higher than a 10. It's just 1 to 10
That's
level.
Right. Yeah.
We can't make it a 15 around Christmas.
We could. We could, but yeah.
We could, but why?
Yeah.
So if it does say 10 in February, just know it's not going to be Christmas-like crowds. It's just true. Our model doesn't go
That's
higher
definitely true.
Around Christmas. Also, what did I want to say? Oh, it was right there. Nope, gone. Okay, it'll come back.
I'm sure.
Okay, so I want to address some of your questions because you've been waiting really patiently. A lot of people didn't know that our crowd calendar was talking about wait times and not people in the park. So I think that's really good that we talked about that. I hope we answered some of your questions about why there's been such a jump. I'm glad that Fred was willing to come on and talk about that because I think it's important, when we come out with something so drastic in the crowd calendar to kind of talk about why so that, people understand better. And we completely understand why some of you have been upset. It's completely justified. It's super scary to see that, especially when you've put the money and the planning into a trip and your heart just kind of drops in your stomach.
Absolutely. I mean, and for that, we have to apologize. I mean, we really do sympathize with people. This is a paid service. We're providing you with a product. And if it doesn't meet your expectations, that's on us. So we're going to work really hard to try to help you, get over these increases and help you plan to beat the crowds. And like I said, I think the secret to doing that is sticking to your touring plan.
Yeah, but we have, the software. You guys have figured out what was going on with that. You've kind of better, I don't know, as far as the trends with the different events and everything. I mean, you guys have been tracking this since 2002.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, It's been a lot of wait times that have been
Oh yeah,
tracked. What
yeah. We've seen
millions?
a lot,
Gee,
but they keep us busy for sure. There's always something new.
oh yeah,
Always something new.
Disney keeps changing it up
Yep.
on us.
Yep.
Jeannie has a good
Okay.
question that I think a lot of people wanted to know. Seems everyone is using these crowd trackers these
Yes.
days. Do you think that is affecting the accuracy of your data?
Okay, it depends on what you mean by crowd tracker. Now we have a crowd tracker on our site, which allows people to be notified if something changes on the date that they're interested in. I don't think she means that. I think she means the crowd calendars. Like if so many people are using the calendars, is it affecting the way people visit? That's an interesting. I think that would be great if that were the case. If so many people were using our crowd calendar that it was influencing, the actual feel of the parks and the wait times in the parks.
And it's not affecting our data because you're getting data from the liners and the wait
That's
times
that's right.
every 5
Yeah, it's not
minutes.
affecting our data,
So,
but if she
yeah.
means, is it affecting our predictions? I don't think so. I don't think we're at that sort of critical point where so many people are following this that that it's influencing what we see in the parks. We are prepared for that day, and we hope to get there one day. But as of now, no, I don't think that's a factor.
All right. Don wants to know, do you think they're allowing more people into the parties than previous years?
Oh,
I would say for the first parties, like the blog where the bloggers come in, the vloggers. I mean, Brian would tell you that those first parties are crazy
yeah,
busy. But I went to the sold out party for Christmas and it wasn't busy at
that's
all.
interesting. Yeah, that's a good question for Brian. And Len as well. I'm not sure. I don't think that they've changed those numbers recently, but we could check on that. That's an interesting observation.
Yeah, I always go back after the Facebook Lives if there were any questions that were unanswered. I always go back and write if there was an unanswered question. So we will try to check on that for
Great.
you, and either Fred or I will answer you, Don. Let's see. Are there any questions that you see, Fred, that you want to answer? Uh, Amanda said, which you kind of already addressed, can you explain how the touring plan changes as the crowd calendar changes? Do the order of attractions change or just the time waiting?
Oh, well, both can change. So once we update the wait time forecast for an individual attraction, then you have to generate or re-optimize your touring plan, and it will do a new optimization. So it will pretend that it knows nothing about what the previous touring plan was, and it will again try to find you the quickest route through the attractions that you've selected. So it'll do both. It will take in the new wait time forecasts that have recently been updated, and then it'll recalculate an optimal plan that will go through those attractions for you. So it'll do both.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's really important to re-optimize anyway, whether or
Always.
not the
Yeah,
crowd levels change.
for
I
sure.
always do it like just because I want to. I do it like the week before, especially the day before, the morning of. It's just important to do
Even when you're
anyway.
halfway through your plan, you're sitting down for lunch and you have your mobile device out, re-optimize for the rest of the day. I mean, there's lots of things can happen
Absolutely.
during the day. So yeah, we strongly recommend that you re-optimize often.
Oh yes, and it's very helpful if you guys haven't used our touring plans. This is the plug. I didn't do a plug last time. Now I'm plugging. The touring plans are amazing. I've even used it with my kids before. I was like, oh, I have a baby, will it work? But I've used it with my 4-year-old. I actually have a video about
Oh,
it,
cool.
which I'll link. Very, very helpful. All right. With the new Disney ticket system, this is from Jason. Is that information that Disney shares with you guys? Oh, does Disney share the new Disney ticket system information with us? I would imagine that leads to greater accuracy with crowd calendars.
Yeah, well, the information is public. You can go on and you can see, and we've already done
Mm-hmm.
this. We've compiled a database of all of the prices for all the different types of tickets for the next, as long as they've published on their site. So we know what the ticket prices are, and yes, that's absolutely something that goes into our predictions. This is a good example again of something that's new. So although it's incorporated,
Mm-hmm.
it takes a while. You have to see how this impacts people's decisions to travel certain times. We don't know. We can only assume how people might react to the pricing scheme. We have to track it for something close to a year before we get a real good sense of whether or not that's impacting wait times.
Well, and also with that new ticket system, it's cheaper when you buy your tickets during those value times. So that might encourage people to travel during those value times, which then would change the crowd levels and bring them up.
Yeah.
And also, I remembered what I was going to say. Okay, whew, I'm so glad. It's important to note that with our crowd calendar in general,
Yes.
it could be off a point or two.
Oh,
it's just that's average.
Yes. Our average
So
error is plus or minus a point. So, yeah.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind. If you go to the parks and it says it's a 3 and it's like a 4 or 5, that's expected. That's average. So, just keep that in mind. I just wanted to remember to say that. Also, I had another question. Why don't our crowd levels match what other people see on other crowd calendars?
Yeah, this is a question I get a lot, and I take it that a lot of people are looking at the various different calendars that are out there. I don't have a lot that I can really comment about other calendars. I think our calendar is unique because we take a real data-driven approach. A lot of other calendars don't. They just kind of use their own personal insight, and that's fine. That is what it is. Our approach is that we want to be able to make a prediction, and we want to be able to check that prediction against what we observe once the day is over. So from our perspective, I think that's a little bit different, a little bit unique than other calendars. That being said, I do find that most of the time the calendars do agree, but there are certainly lots of examples where they don't agree. And that's where I think we have to kind of, play our reputation card a little bit, where, we've been doing this since the early 2000s. We have a lot of data. We put a lot of time and effort into these, predictions. A lot of money is spent making sure they're as accurate as possible. And we're constantly trying to get every little bit of accuracy we can out of our models. They're not always accurate, that's for sure. Like I said, typically the latest trend is that we've been under predicting. So that's something that we want to correct. But yeah, we stand behind the accuracy of these things, and we want people to know that we will be tracking very closely how we do, and trying to make improvements as the data keeps rolling in.
Yep, and this is the most accurate at this point. Our calendars are as accurate as they've been.
Yes, yeah, for the most part, yeah. It's it's an up and down game.
Okay.
We've been doing this for a long time. It's an up and down game, and it comes and goes. But I'm very, very curious to see how accurate these predictions that we just updated, especially for the next 3 months. Because we try to kind of take our own personal emotion out of it. We put all of our effort into the modeling process, and so we kind of just react to what it tells us. And sometimes we don't even believe it, but we've learned over the years that it's smarter than we are, and that we should kind of we should trust it and wait and see. So trust it and react is kind of our our philosophy. So.
I think I asked you this on the podcast, but now I can't remember. How long have you been with TouringPlans?
I started in 2002. Yeah.
So you started
right from the beginning.
when basically, we started doing the crowd calendar.
Yeah, Len started doing this in the late 1990s, I believe. And I joined a couple of years after that. And together he and I were, going around the parks and collecting the wait times on a pad and paper right back to the beginning. So yeah, I've been here a long time.
Fred, you're an OG. I'm like a baby compared to you. I've only been here it'll be 5 years this year. Crazy.
I could tell you some stories.
Oh man, that's for another podcast. All right. Let's see. Steven said our crowd calendars went up for March. Is it possible they may go down? This is for early March.
That's a good question. That's a very good question. Is it possible? Yes, of course. It's definitely possible. Is it probable? That's another story. That's kind of an uncomfortable question for a statistician. We don't know. Right now, based on the information that we have, what's on the site is the best, most accurate prediction that we have. Can something change between now and March? Yeah, it could. Maybe, there's all kinds of reasons why things would change. They could, the weather might be particularly bad through the winter, or I'm trying to think. Maybe there's new events added, or events taken away, or park hours could change. There's all the economy could struggle. There's all kinds of reasons where things might change between now and March. Will it? I tend to lean towards saying probably not, but I always throw in the caveat that the calendar is subject to change, and it might change. So, if it does, like I said, we're going to be, keeping in touch fairly often, every couple of weeks with our mid-monthly, updates, and then with our monthly update to the calendar, we'll keep people notified as to where we think things are heading in the near future.
Okay. Well, let's get to, I don't know, speaking of crowd calendar, it just always has me thinking about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, because I'm sure that's going to be changing things. And I know we're still seeing changes from, Pandora and Avatar Flight of Passage. So let's talk a little bit about that. We have some questions.
Okay.
You might not even know this yet, but just from, I don't know, maybe you guys have talked about this. How is the June opening for Disneyland's Galaxy's Edge affecting crowds? What do you anticipate the daily ride capacity to be? This is stuff I don't even know if you guys can predict yet, but I'll ask more questions after that. This is a big question. So how is the June opening affecting crowds? Let's start with that.
If you're talking about the June opening at Disneyland and how it's affecting Disneyland crowds, I think that's an easy question to answer. Of course, Disneyland is going to be absolutely swamped to the level, I think, that we saw when Avatar opened in Disney World, Animal Kingdom. I think that's just going to be insane. I think there are a huge number of Star Wars fans, in particular in California and on the West Coast. So I think that park is going to be just slammed. If you're asking how will that affect travelers to Walt Disney World, that's an interesting question, and that's something that we've talked about a little bit internally. That I don't know. I don't know if people, people who might, let's say, live in Colorado, and they typically go to Disney World, but every once in a while they go to Disneyland. Are the vast majority of those people now going to go to Disneyland, instead of Disney World because it has the new Star Wars stuff? Maybe that's a potential. So we could see a little bit of a dip in in the attendance at Disney World in the summer. That could be another reason why the free dining promotion was offered at Disney World in the summer to counteract that kind of everybody going to the West Coast phenomenon. Possibly, that's a big question mark that we'll have to watch.
Do you foresee any special privileges for on-site guests, like Walt Disney World did with Pandora? Did they do that with Pandora? I guess I don't even know if that happened.
You're talking about like annual pass holder previews, things like that?
This is on-site guests, so I don't know if that means like
special access?
Extra magic hours or what?
Well, certainly.
Special access, I guess. Certainly. I would assume extra magic hours for sure.
We'll assume that it's going to be this, the same type of promotions and access that they had for Pandora. But then again, it's Star Wars. Who knows? They might do paid ticket, maybe paid access. Who knows? That's a good question for Len and Jim Hill.
They could.
They might know.
Yeah. That would be a good one for them to do. All right, let's see what some other questions are. This is one that I can actually answer. Does Magic Kingdom always have Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party on Halloween? And the answer is yes. I mean, I went as far back as 2010, and they always have a party on Halloween. And someone was wondering why we don't have that listed under 2019. I guess the answer I have is that we post predicted hours and schedules, but probably don't factor in parties since those are subject to change. But maybe you have a better answer.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a long way away. If it isn't listed there, that could be an error. We might need to list that. It's possible that because obviously there's no announcement right now for official party dates in October. It's just a guess. Yeah. So we may have to go and revisit the dates that we've guessed for the parties next year. But I would expect that there would be on Halloween. It'd be very strange if there wasn't. So that's a good point. Yeah. I'm going to make a note of that so we can go and check that after this.
Yeah, because I would assume it'd say, 9 to 6 p.m. Also under, let's see, where's my other question? I see that you have party dates listed for that year. Are those projected dates? Well, if you go to our page for Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, those are our 2018 dates. And as soon as we get the 2019 dates, we update those right away. So those dates you see are from last year. Now, Amy said, where can we find the chances of getting a day of Fast Pass for each attraction? I wonder if Amy means what are the chances of getting a day of Fast Pass for each attraction? Do you want to cover this one, Fred?
What are the chances? Day of? That's well, it depends on the attraction. Did she mention that? a specific attraction or just any attraction?
There's no specific
Okay.
attraction, no.
Yeah, it depends on the attraction. There are some attractions where there's absolutely no hope. The most popular ones, obviously. Others, almost every day you can get at least something. There are,
Yeah.
for certain attractions, and this is typically my style. I'm not going to the parks with my young kids anymore. My kids are older teens, so when we go, it's usually last minute stuff. We don't usually book fast passes in advance. Maybe the night before or the morning of. And I'm surprised how often, even on busier days, there's still something that you can book. You can get a fast pass for Spaceship Earth or Buzz Lightyear or some other kind of, not the super headliners, but kind of one level down. There's usually something that I find, that's good. I'd like to do Haunted Mansion or something like that. So it is possible to get them on the day of. Yes.
Yeah, I would say that if it's rides that you really want to do, it's not recommended to do it the day before or the day of. But I went on a work trip after Thanksgiving, and I managed to get a fast pass the day of for Slinky Dog Dash and Adrian's Swirling Saucers.
Nice.
Both of them on the same
Bonus.
day, and that does not happen. I feel
that's pretty rare.
Not recommended, but not impossible. I know that we've heard that Flight of Passage drops fast passes every hour, like 7 minutes after the hour. It's some crazy number. We've heard that. So, but again, I mean, if it's something you really want to do, really do it at that 60-day mark or 30-day mark, whatever your time is.
If you can, for sure, do it right away. But
yeah, if you can. Okay, and can you see Magic Kingdom fireworks from the Contemporary? Yes, on top of the California Grill, or
you can see it from there. Yeah, that's I think the only place, unless obviously you have a room. So I'm assuming you're not staying there. Can you go there and watch the fireworks? Not without going up to California Grill, I would say.
Yeah. Or Bay Lake Tower, that top of the world.
That's true. Over there, yeah.
I've watched there. That's amazing. Have you ever been to Cinderella's Royal Table for dinner? And what is your favorite food to eat? Have you been there for dinner?
For dinner, yes. I've been there for dinner. It was a few years ago. I don't remember what I ate.
My daughter has been there for dinner, but I haven't. She went with my husband's aunt and uncle, and they had the steak, shrimp, and chicken, and they said that was all really good. Yeah. And the same for Be Our Guest for lunch. The braised pork I get every time, and it's fabulous. It's very,
do they still have
good.
The tuna there? I like the tuna there. I've had the tuna there a few times.
I don't know if they have that. It's
been a while since I've been there.
I haven't tried it.
Yeah.
I did go there for dinner in November, and I have a review coming out soon. I'll edit that and put that up.
With Cinderella's,
and I tried escargot.
Oh, nice. With Cinderella's Royal Table, even if the food isn't great, it's a great place to go just for the atmosphere. I mean, I think you're going there because you're eating in the castle. I mean, come on, how cool is that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I feel like it's something you should try to do if you're a princess lover once in your life.
Oh, yes, for sure.
If you can. Yeah, it's very fun. Otherwise, there's breakfast and lunch, too. And I think I've only done breakfast. I've done that maybe once or twice. All right. Last couple questions. We are arriving late Saturday night to Pop Century around 6 p.m. I'd like to watch the fireworks outside of the parks. Where are the best places to do that? And I assume that they don't really want to spend money, so maybe some free places. I read that the Ticket and Transportation Center dock is an amazing place to watch.
That would be a good one.
I've never done it. Do you have any other suggestions?
Right next to there, the beach from the Polynesian. That's a great place to watch. They have they have some benches and obviously the beach. You could sit on the beach if you brought a blanket or something. It's a nice spot to watch from.
Yeah, I've watched the water pageant from there, and that's a really good place to watch too.
If you can time it right, we did this. Actually, Chantal and I did this once a couple of years ago, which was great. Even if you're not going to the Magic Kingdom that night, if you can plan it to kind of go to the Magic Kingdom entrance right around when the fireworks are going to go off, and then take the ferry boat back to the TTC, and you can watch it as you're drifting away from the castle. It's a really nice effect.
Someone else wrote that, and I wrote that down, and I'm like, I wonder who actually does that. But that's a really good place to do it. That's good timing. I don't have that kind of timing, so I'm thinking, I could never do that.
It's a bit of a Mission Impossible thing where you have to synchronize your watches and say, okay, go. Let's go. Get on.
Oh, yeah. And the ferry, you're like, come on, faster, faster, faster.
Yeah.
I could not do that. And the last question we'll answer today is from Amy. Are your heat maps more reflective of actual crowds, or are they for ride wait times as well? Well, it's one and the same, kind
Good
of.
question. Yeah, those are also for wait times. Yeah, all of the representations on the site for crowd levels relate to wait times. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that is all we have for today. Fred, thank you so much for
Thanks
joining
for having me.
me.
That was
I
great.
think we had a lot of questions
Yeah.
answered. I'd love to have you on again.
Anytime.
That'd be
Yeah, it's
fun.
fun.
Yeah. All right. If you have any more questions, leave them below. I will try to get to them, and we'll see you next time.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.